September 17th, 2012, Monday. It was match day, and coach's class had just started. First team was huddled around while Connors and Darkspeed started going over strategy. "Who's your wild card?" Connors asked. "Bob. She's invisible and can disguise herself," Darkspeed answered. "No, you can sick Bioforce on Bob and she'll hone in on her life sign every time. IQ is the one you have to watch. He's smarter than anyone on your team. What has he been able to plan? What upgrades has he given to Cyber? Has he invented anything new for his other teammates? He is your first priority. Bench the brain. Fine, we'll set Virtuoso on him. Her speed is better than his, and he can't defend against her telepathic attack." Next week, Darkspeed was interrupted by Connors. "Before you continue, think. What are the other team's priorities? Who do they want to bench first? Midas. He would most likely be first target. He's been throwing around those TK blasts with such force. They get their fastest person to try and bench him first. That would mean either Cyber or Kinetic. I think our best bet would be to put Olympian on Cyber, and then, after Quake, Midas on Kinetic." Darkspeed was again interrupted by Connors. "Midas on Kinetic? Have you forgotten how fast Kinetic is?" Connors asked. "No, but working with Midas this week on catching things in the air has really paid off. If he can feel something, he can catch it, and his matter powers are faster than his eyes." "Matter powers? Check," Midas said with two thumbs up. "You know the rules of this match," Connors said with one eye cocked. "One of ours benched, and I forfeit the match." "I know," Darkspeed said. Plans and counterplans continued until it was time for specialties. First team had just been harnessed and took their side of the pit. Spurs gave neither side time to get their feet. 10, 9, he said. "Virtuoso, party line on," Darkspeed said as he waited for the pain in his head. The pain was much lighter than it had been before. "Party line on," Virtuoso thought. "Just like last time. I want a hard crush that takes us past the fray and into the cleanup," Darkspeed said as he looked around at his teammates. Darkspeed also looked over at fifth team that was evenly spaced across their field. They all had their backs turned from first team's side of the field. He figured they were avoiding whatever illusion Virtuoso would make them see on their side. 3, 2, Spurs continued. When Spurs said 2, each of the members of fifth team spun around and faced first team. They all had goggles over their eyes and a round ball in each hand. "Go!" Spurs yelled. Each member of fifth team threw the balls up as Spurs said go. The balls exploded with bright, blinding light that made it impossible to see. First team was caught off guard and fifth team pressed to crush. Cyber opened fire with some kind of end gun that knocked Midas back into the side of the pit. His heavy armor kept him from being red benched. Quake shook first team's side of the pit with localized shockwaves that made it impossible to stand. "Kinetic just took a pin," she thought. "Stop him," Darkspeed thought. "I can't." She knew full well she could not get through his force field, even if she could catch him. "I can't see," Olympian said. Midas was trying to find his feet, but kept bouncing violently on the ground. He did the only thing he could think of. He changed the pit limestone to water. All the alphas that were not in the air found themselves in 50 feet deep water. Olympian could see somewhat as he went underwater. Bioforce could feel Bob drop into the water and went into the water after her. "He has a second pin," she thought out loud. Midas felt up to where Kinetic was. He felt him place the pin in fifth team's rack. Midas grabbed Kinetic with his telekinesis. Kinetic was violently pulled underwater and thrust into the side of the pit. The impact was enough to bench him. Darkspeed was blinded momentarily as he stood on the blocks on the side of the pit. It took a whole second to regain his sight. Everything above the water was now dark by his power. The next instant he was throwing blocks at the light devices that hung in the air. With the access light gone, Darkspeed ran on the water at Cyber, who was flying near the fifth team rack. Olympian had red benched IQ and Quake. He seemed to know just how to fly underwater and fish for opponents. Darkspeed met Cyber head on. He was too fast for Cyber as he struck him again and again. Cyber took damage, but didn't bench. The leader of fifth team was too slow to strike Darkspeed. Bioforce took on the form of a great white shark and pursued Bob. The stealth's considerable abilities didn't save her from the shark with super speed and strength. Shark Teeth red benched Bob with ease. She had stayed above the water and kept track of the targets left. She knew Monk was swimming after the last pin on first team's side. Invisible, she hovered above the rack and waited for Monk to surface. Monk was red benched by She's sword. Darkspeed was still striking Cyber, unable to bench him. Cyber tried guns and flamethrowers, but could not hit the speedster that ran on water. Finally, Cyber rose into the air and headed toward first team's rack. Cyber is after the last pin, Darkspeed thought loudly. Olympian came out of the water like a missile at Cyber. Cyber had a faster reaction time than Olympian, but was not a faster flyer. Olympian tackled Cyber into the side of the pit. Cyber didn't bench until Olympian hit him directly. Darkspeed ran the pins back and forth in a fraction of a second. Spurs had to look twice to make sure the watery racks had the right pins. Match goes to first team, Spurs yelled. Olympian fished Virtuoso out of the water as the others found their way out of the pit. If someone would have gone after you in the water, Connors would have forfeited us, Olympian said. I was hiding myself with an illusion and I teleport. Don't worry about me, Virtuoso said back to him. When everyone was out of the pit, Midas changed the water back to limestone chips. Darkspeed and the team went to face Connors. See what I meant about the smart ones? He asked. Darkspeed nodded. I have to admit, I didn't see that one coming. Your team handled it well. Now you're learning to react to the unpredictable. Now I want you and the rest of the team to start setting the standard here at Alpha. Get them dried off and ready for dinner. Virtuoso teleported first team back to the dorm and said, Midas, that water thing was brilliant. It really saved the match. What made you think of it? I was just thinking of something soft when I was bouncing around on the ground, and water is pretty simple to make, Midas said. I couldn't see. Who benched Kinetic? Bioforce asked. That was Waterboy here, Olympian said. You used your TK too, right? Yeah, that was me, Midas said. Well, you saved the match. Good job, Darkspeed said as he turned to Virtuoso. How did Cyber get so tough? After the match, I read IQ's mind. He stayed up last night working on the nano armor enhancements. Cyber generates his own power, so he made a pretty advanced set of powered armor, Virtuoso said. Olympian ignored the tech talk. Bioforce, I love the shark thing. Thanks, Bioforce said. Say you're welcome, Olympian, and don't be rude, Virtuoso said. I wasn't going to say anything. Olympian started heading for his room. I may have thought it, but I didn't say it. What? Bioforce said with curiosity. Nothing, just get cleaned up, Virtuoso said as she headed for her room. Midas went into his room and quickly touched his earpiece. Jilly! What? She thought back. I used the earpiece because you don't always hear my thoughts anymore. What was Olympian going to say? It's not worth repeating. Hey, I let you in on plenty, Midas reminded her. Okay, he was formulating some joke in his mind about her mouth being the same size in human and shark form. Midas laughed. You were right to cut him off. See you at dinner. During dinner, Virtuoso sat and talked with IQ. Watching the two of them together, it was tough to tell where the Irish boy ended and the Brazilian girl began. She was fascinated with how smart he was and kept reading his thoughts through dinner and into the lab. Show me what you did with Cyber's armor, she thought to him. Look, IQ used his intellect to remember each stage of what he did in detail. The images and ideas passed between them at high speed. That's smart, Virtuoso admitted. Let me show you two projects I'm working on. The first is for the Bishamon Sentinels. The second is for a set of powered armor for Midas. Here's the kicker. I think they're the same project. I think we can come up with a better armor than just a harder shell, Virtuoso said. IQ looked over some designs she had on the lab computers. We're using energy to amplify a material's strength. Maybe we have the wrong material. We keep starting with the strongest stuff we can find. Maybe that's not it. Virtuoso listened to IQ's thoughts as he started to think at high speed. His thoughts took in places hers would not have gone. She understood why he could invent so quickly. He thought without limits. His creative mind started to see a place to begin.